Let me bring this guy on. He's a former senior ABC News correspondent, covered the White House for years, and he joins us on Fridays at this time. He's Jim Avila, everyone. Yeah.
Morning.
Yeah.
How are you, Mark?
Good morning, sir.
Kim?
Yeah. Kim, how are you?
Hi, you're looking very well, Mr. Avila.
All right. Very
Kim,
good.
how are you?
Yeah, no. Do my best.
And this guy's forgotten more
I
about
did get up
politics
and
than
comb my hair this morning.
most
so
of us will ever know. How about it from Michael Shure, everybody? Yeah. Guys,
Hey, Michael.
How are you, Tim? How are you, Kim? How are you, Mark?
Yeah, well...
Is the segment over now that we've all greeted each other for a long time?
Yeah, we do. I think a little, sometimes we greet for long periods. Sometimes we don't greet at all. It's all, there's an ebb and flow.
Discuss how we greet.
Sometimes maybe we should just do a segment sometimes where we only do greet. Is that everything? No, I don't know. Just an idea. It's a wild idea.
Just a question.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Right. Yeah, sorry, Jim.
Are the Giants that good or are the Dodgers that bad?
Oh, that's right. There's a rivalry here. Jim Avila is a Dodgers fan.
He's a Cubs fan. Isn't he a Cubs fan?
Cubs first, but I live in LA now, so.
Yeah.
But
None of it
Jim,
matters. The NHL playoffs start next week.
I was just about to ask you about that. Yeah.
Hey, how's the weather?
Oh, you're
weather
just trying
in LA?
Well, I mean, if we're talking sports, we talk weather. Is this the long greeting? Is that what we're doing?
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. What I was going to say is that Jim.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's
right,
get
okay.
to the good stuff.
Yeah. I'll just mention this as a footnote. Jim Avila did play professional baseball, so that for the next time. All right, so let's talk about
not major league, but yeah.
Well, it was. Weren't you on the farm team of a major league franchise? Okay,
You were
well, that's
paid
major. That's
a paycheck for baseball.
Yeah, exactly. You're a professional baseball player. Will you let me? Guys, let me handle the descriptions as to who you are. It was accurate. Okay.
Yeah,
Who
I just
are
don't
these
want people to think that I was really good.
You were really good. You played, Michael. Am I right? He played professional baseball.
He's certainly better than anyone else on the markdown.
Thank you.
He doesn't time Michael Snyder for first. He's all alone.
Right. This self-effacing thing that we do. All right. Let's get on to some of the things that are going on. Look, a quick comment on this. I did a big breakdown on this story. This kid, Teixeira, who's 21 years old, who's an IT guardsman with access to this information because of his status as an IT worker. He released the documents. They're out on the veracity of the documents is being questioned in terms of some of them being doctored. We don't know how many or what exactly. But I just wanted to get your takes on these things. Kim had the comment, boy, between the presidents and former public officials taking top secret documents home with them and this guy, it doesn't appear that we really guard our documents and top secret access very well. Jim, what was your take on it all?
Well, it's kind of a take that is against the mainstream. As a journalist, I don't want top secret documents. I don't want a bunch of we overclassify in America. And and I haven't seen this yet, unless the documents that were released had the names of our spies or the names of people who would be in danger, I don't think it's wrong for us to know what the government is thinking and doing behind closed doors. Do we not protect them well enough? Yes, that's true. But should they be protected is a bigger question in my mind. And Daniel Ellsberg, did a great service for this country. There have been other leaks of classified documents that have revealed what the government was really thinking and how they were lying to us. So, in general, I'm not for classified documents. We overclassify way too much. The information that would protect our agents should be protected, I believe. But other than that, we know that we're spying on Israel. We know we're spying on England. We know we had the cell phone of the German chancellor. So that's all known. So I'm not, I guess they take this guy away in handcuffs, but it doesn't really make sense to me.
You first, Michael, and then I had a thought, please.
Well, I mean, I don't. I agree in part with the spirit of what Jim's saying. I think this is a little different than Daniel Ellsberg. I think we do overclassify, but until we start classifying, underclassifying, or classifying reasonably, I still think we have to stay within the parameters. The other thing, it's really unfair for me, or I think anyone, to talk about this because we don't know what was in there, right? If in fact there was an endangerment that happened here, we classify things usually to keep our. Jim had a good chance to use assets, but he went with agents. So I'm going to use assets now to keep our assets safe around the world. I think that's why you classify. Yes, there are things that we know by default and we can assume by default. But I also think that once something is classified, that there is at least an onus on doing this in a way that is not, I would say, a sworn member of the United States military doing this. It probably goes against what we should set up as precedent. But again, I need to know a little bit more about what's in these things and how deep it goes. And everything else has been sort of conjecture at this point. So I'm not going to jump into that just yet.
Yeah. It's interesting. Avila's point is sort of a fundamental point about the U.S. government and secrecy and what is classified. And it seems we can agree, probably everyone who's followed the bouncing ball at all on this can agree that these things tend to be overclassified. I mean, I think that it just seems clear at this point. But having heard so many people weigh in on these classified documents thing over the last year, I mean, prompted first by Trump and then Biden, et cetera, Pence. But then there's a question of protocols within government and should they be respected or not. Now, you can, again, change those protocols, but at some point you have the protocols and you don't question them by releasing documents on your own. You question them if you want to by going through channels of another sort. This kid was trying to impress friends, and I mean, it's sort of this weird adolescent world of peacocking meeting the world of top secret clearance. The story is somewhat bizarre, I think. But
well, the guy is a strange guy. There's no doubt about that. And I guess there's evidence now that on his social media that he had pictures of him shooting guns and yelling anti-Semitic stuff. So I'm not defending the guy. And the fact that he was in the military does raise the standards. But I still say the government lies to us all the time. And the press benefits from leaks like this one, like the WikiLeaks. Those type of things do tell us what's really going on, because we're defending Ukraine, I think, for a good reason. All right, but we should know the facts about that and not just hear the spin of either side. And I think that releasing some of these documents it serves the public. That's just my general opinion.
I mean, I think back to Snowden, Manning. You have major dumps of documents and information that the American people probably, on balance, benefited from enormously. As you say, it pulled back the curtain on a lot of U.S. policy that was really troubling. And then you could put Ellsberg in that category. But
I think also that it's about precedent too, and it's about some rogue kid trying to impress his friends. Fine, I mean, not fine, but okay. You just have to understand that shouldn't happen all the time, and there has to be a way to prevent this from happening as well. I unquestionably agree with overclassification. It's too easy to classify things that should be in the public domain, but by the same token, once they're classified, you want to prevent this from happening again. The sort of the arm flex hack person to come out and make hay of this.
Let me
and
just
of course he'll
pivot
go
to
to jail.
Go ahead.
But
what's that?
But will Trump go to jail? I don't know.
Well,
it's the same thing, even more egregious in my opinion. because he's
well,
the
this guy
president of the
doesn't
United
have a
States.
this guy doesn't have a record, and now Trump does. So.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
you know,
I thought what you were going to say is, if look, you've heard the Marjorie Taylor Greene rhetoric, and you're hearing some rhetoric from the right. Most of them are standing back on this, but I thought you were going to say, I mean, again, sort of a lot of stuff has to fall into place, but nothing's impossible. If Trump were actually to become president again, he might actually pardon the guy. I mean, he pardoned out-and-out war criminals who were involved in Afghanistan, as you're aware, and I mean, shooting up villagers and civilians. He pardoned them, and they became sort of heroes on the stump with him. I think he's capable of anything.
They shot an old man. So he shot an old man on his knees in the head, executed him, and got convicted, but then released by the former guy.
That guy that Jim Avila is talking about was so dangerous that people in his unit actually took the sight on his gun and they readjusted it so it would be so far off that what he was shooting at probably wouldn't be hit. I mean, imagine that. That's the guy that is, as Jim says, taken in, tried, convicted, and then pardoned by Trump and deified on the stump as a war hero. So, anyway, so what happens to this guy if GOP control of the executive branch is something that we look at in the next election? We'll see. I want to pivot quickly to abortion because it's remarkable how quickly these abortion changes and the right to basic reproductive freedoms, I say basic, that we've had for decades, are now very much imperiled. The latest being the abortion pill, but then Florida has put in some very, very tough restrictions on women pending another court case. It may be illegal to get an abortion, to decide an abortion. It's a painful thing to decide on to begin with for many, and it may not even be available to women in the state of Florida after 6 weeks.
It's politics, as we know, and the politics of abortion are clearly the politics of primaries when it comes to Republicans. So you need the bona fides of having fought against any kind of abortion rights. And when you're the governor of Florida, who is a presumed, though I'm not so certain, candidate for president next time, you do things and then you rally behind the things that are being done. And that's part of primary politics. So all these Republicans are trying to out anti-abortion one another because anybody can see what this issue has done in terms of the politics of it on a national scale, right? So when you get to the nominee of the Republican Party, how are they going to turn around and temper that with an electorate that is clearly shown that they are in favor of expanding abortion rights and making abortion safe and legal? So I think it's always a pivot that Republicans have to make when they run for president, but they have to sort of do this at a primary time. I know it's April, a year and a half before an election, but this is as they start to position themselves. And we already have a new candidate running from South Carolina, Tim Scott, the senator there. So this is it started, even if it hasn't started.
Yeah, it's a tough pivot that you're talking about, but you're right. They'll have to make it. Go ahead, Jim.
They make it every 4 years.
DeSantis is in a tough spot. You know, he's trying to do it both ways. He signed that bill in Florida, which makes abortion illegal almost from right away before you even know that you're pregnant. But he did it quietly. He did it behind closed doors, and he hasn't been speaking about it. And on the book tour, he doesn't bring it up because he knows it's a losing issue. You may win in the primary, and you can't be pro abortion if you're going to be a Republican candidate. But all the polls show that up to 80% of the American population overall believes that there should be access to abortion. So you're not going to win the general election with that. It still remains the Republicans' Achilles heel. That is, American women are not going to forget that, and progressive men are not going to forget that this freedom has been taken away. So, they're all in a tough spot, and they're all, having to say, and their legislatures are, of course, the state legislatures are, of course, even more right-wing and radical than the major parties, because they have these gerrymandered districts where they don't have to worry about it, and they just do, they just pass these incredibly bad laws. So, but I think in the end, as I've said all along, even from the midterms, this is not a winning issue for the Republicans, and it's going to backfire.
I want to move on. Somebody, I think, I don't block anybody in the chat. I just don't block them. I mean, they can call me whatever name you want. I don't care. You can, but I think Kim blocked somebody. But I was going to say, somebody called me like a liberal schmuck or whatever.
I did it.
Oh, you blocked
Look,
him?
he could say all mean things he wants. It was all caps. That was annoying.
Oh, I see.
I was going to say, do I need to block somebody?
Oh,
Thanks, Tony.
Tony, the black. Anyway, I don't block.
Just for
I
5
just want you to
minutes.
know you can say whatever. So you take a 5-minute timeout, Glenn. That was Tony. But I am a liberal. I guess I am a liberal schmuck. If you think that women having choice over their own body is something that's a liberal schmuck thing, then I'm a liberal schmuck.
Can I just
go ahead.
say something regarding abortion rights?
Yes, please, Kim.
And reproductive rights.
Yeah.
I heard both Michael
I don't think
Shure.
we want to have any women speaking on this
Yeah,
issue.
please. It's
No,
you to understand
please.
men are deciding this
Let the
stuff.
men speak, little lady. Have a seat in the corner. So you both said, Michael Shure and Jim Avila, who I adore you both, but you both said
Here it comes.
that the polls show that more Americans are in favor of women having reproductive rights. Okay, I've seen that information before, and that's great. But if that's true, then why is it that they've voted for people that are anti-abortion or anti-choice? And so if it's true that more people are for it, then why do we keep ending up with these people in power in multiple states that make these decisions for women and not let us choose ourselves? That's a question.
Well, the answer to that is, and Jim brought it up with gerrymandering, is where it starts. The courts also are imbalanced. The Christian right is better about making the pivot that we were talking about before, so that you can go speak to someone in South Carolina now, or I'll just say it. I did it in 2016, who said there's not a chance in the world they could vote for somebody who's as anti-Christian as Donald Trump and does these things and says these things. But you go back during the general election and they realize that Donald Trump, not Hillary Clinton, is going to give them the judges that they want and the justices that they want. And that's what happened. And you have an imbalanced court. And that court then goes back to these gerrymandered states that feel the freedom after Dobbs to put out both legislation and sort of dictatorial edicts, the way that in a sense DeSantis has done in Florida. It facilitates that. So it's everything working together. It's not necessarily the power of the people. It's the power of how they're represented in which states. And you look at most of the states that's happening, it's in these red states, and you see the fruits of the labor that the Koch brothers and their organizations put together to make sure that all of these conservative initiatives happen in state legislatures. The Koch brothers gave up on the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate, in essence, and they said, let's go after the legislatures. And all that money has made these changes, and it's been very effective for them.
That's a huge point that Michael made, the last point about the Koch brothers going for positions that really are more boilerplate than what we think of. This sort of the romantic notion we have about government is that it takes place in the Senate and the House, and it does on some level. But in state after state, the Koch brothers have just captured the legislatures. Go ahead, Kim.
No, I thank you for the answer. I appreciate it. I've heard it said that America gets the America it deserves, right? We are the ones voting for these people, and it's just constantly frustrating to see the polls say people are in support, and then what happens at the polling place does not reflect it. So,
and I think too, Kim, don't forget that this is changing a bit. These really right-wing folks are losing now. They're losing elections. They're not losing primaries, but they're losing elections. And when the abortion issue is put before the voters, like it was in Kansas
and Wisconsin
and
recently, right?
In Wisconsin,
right?
The voters are siding with abortion rights. Mm-hmm. So, I think that it's changing. I think it is a fact that the American public is pro reproductive rights. Yeah. And I think, things changed. It took them, what, 40 years, 50 years to overturn Roe versus Wade. It may take some time, but I think it's going in the right direction that, again, we'll have abortion rights nationally. And we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting what happens at the Supreme Court in the abortion pill when that comes up before them, because you have the two conflicting rulings, and they're going to have to make a call here, and that's going to be a big decision.
I'm not hopeful because I feel like we'll be mired in Trump judgeships for decades to come.
Well, that's certainly true.
It is true.
And just on that note, I mean, the judgeships that are stacking up right now, waiting for confirmation because of Dianne Feinstein, and that she's pulling back now and will be replaced in the Judiciary Committee. But I'm just suggesting that the Dems got a giddy up. But I like that you mentioned the Supreme Court, because I do want to get to that. Clarence Thomas is a clearly compromised justice. We've said it on this show, and I'm not alone. Many have said it across the spectrum. And when he didn't recuse himself from the case involving his wife, that in itself, should have been disqualification and all the evidence you need. But now you realize that he's really been captured by this billionaire, the Hitler collecting, what is that? What do you call it? Hitler memorabilia collecting, fascist collecting billionaire who's essentially enabled this very high-end life that Clarence Thomas pursues. And he did a movie about Clarence Thomas. We ran a clip of it here a few days ago, in which Thomas professes to be this guy who likes to get into an RV and hang out in Walmart parking lots as opposed to going to these exotic ports of call. Of course, the reality is just the opposite. So he's slinging his own BS, and he's covering up what are huge pieces of business that he's doing for this billionaire. I would suggest that my words, not yours, but clearly there's a relationship there with this billionaire, and the billionaire now, the latest, bought the home of Clarence Thomas's mother and another parcel of real estate that was alongside. So I ask you, I was saying in the first hour, I don't care what happens, this dude is going to be there on the Supreme Court till he drops dead, or until he decides to push away from the court, which will be many, many years from now. Do you have a different take? What could happen with Clarence Thomas? Anything? Will there be any repercussions to all that I've just mentioned? Jim Avila.
Well, it really is up to John Roberts, and John Roberts has got to, he claims to be worried about the court and its reputation. If he really is, he needs to do something about Clarence Thomas and set up some. The problem is that there are no real ethics rules, or they're very weak compared to what the ethics rules for the president and for Congress. So they need to change that, and then they need to do something with him. I don't know that they will do it. Will they? They've shown there's no evidence that they want to. And then secondly, you have Dick Durbin, who's talking about it in Congress as the head of the Judiciary Committee, but he hasn't done anything yet either. There may be some action there, some hearings. But I think you're right. In the end, will Clarence Thomas be forced out of the court? Kicking and screaming. I don't think he got in despite the fact that there was clear evidence that he was a sexual abuser. He's still there. It's crazy.
Yeah, and he's also one of the older justices now. So, many of them go out feet first. But I think after a while, at some point, I don't think Clarence Thomas wants to go out. And Mrs. Clarence Thomas wants him to go out while President Joe Biden is in office. That's for sure. And so but I do think John Roberts is the linchpin here. He's the one who can actually make the difference. There are no ethics rules, right? The Congress can have an ethics committee about the Supreme Court, but that hasn't happened. And Mark, just to backtrack to a good point you made about the judges and justices, since we're still in the legal world, and Dianne Feinstein. It's a very interesting political story, because any one Republican can stand in the way of Feinstein being replaced. So if one of them objects, that means it's a sort of a long process of Democrats in the Senate getting 60 votes to filibuster, basically, to replace Feinstein on the Judiciary Committee. So if Josh Hawley stands up and says, no, I don't want to replace, then you're back to that backlog of judges. And so I think it's important that Feinstein. A lot of people think it's important that Feinstein resign, but certainly that she just leave the committee.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's really sad, isn't it?
Should she resign, Jim Avila? Should she resign?
I think she should resign now, but I think it's sad because she has been a great senator and someone who, for the most part, is somebody that California can be proud of. For her to end her career in this terrible way, to save her dignity, she should come out and resign. Is my opinion. And I say that with a heavy heart because I covered her as a mayor in San Francisco when I started as a reporter at KPIX, and I've always found her to be, until recently, refreshingly honest and a good person. So it's a shame that I have to say that I think she should resign.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say she should resign because I don't know the medical stuff. I don't think she should be a senator, if that's a diplomatic way of saying it. If she is, in fact, as infirmed as they say she is, I think, and the most important thing is for Dianne Feinstein's sake, she probably should, right? Jim's right. She was a leader on so many social issues. She was a leader on guns in the U.S. Senate. She is a big reason why there was an assault weapons ban that was effective. She was out front on LGBTQ or LGBT at that time. It was gay issues and gay rights before anybody on a public in such a public way. And she's going to be remembered by a lot of people now for in the winter of her years in the Senate for hugging Lindsey Graham and telling him he did a great job on a hearing, a judiciary hearing, and for really abdicating her role in the judiciary here. And that is in fact sad. Yeah.
Yeah, and she voted, I'm pretty sure she voted for both Barrett and
Right.
She did.
The guy before, right?
Yeah, that was the Graham
and Gorsuch. Yeah, I think that's true. But she comes from a Senate era too that has kind of passed her by, right? And that where you just voted.
In the old days, if the president wanted somebody, unless they were like Brett Kavanaugh, a molester, then you went ahead and voted for them no matter what, which is
exactly,
that's where she comes from. Can I just bring up one other thing, Mark, before we have to go? This thing that Glenn Abbott is doing in Texas is just a travesty. I don't know if you've touched on that at all, but him already saying he's going to pardon this guy who was a right-wing crazy man who went with a gun to a BLM protest and shot the guy point blank. He gets convicted, and now Abbott is saying, I'm going to let him go. It's just a travesty.
So just to show you what a baseball guy is, the governor of Texas is Greg Abbott, but there was a major league pitcher named Glenn Abbott. And Jim,
Thank you.
Just mentioned. That's how professional a baseball player, Jim.
I should resign. I'm getting these things mixed up.
Well, no, I mean it's reprehensible. I kind of put it in the same category as what Trump did with as we were talking about with that Army Ranger we talked about. No,
it's really ugly. It's really, really bad.
It just
it's backfiring a bit now because all this stuff that he had posted online is coming forward, and now what's Abbott going to do at this point? Where he's already said he's going to pardon him, and now this stuff about what a right-wing nut he was, and anti-Semite and anti-black person, it kind of puts him in a hole, which I'm glad to see him in.
Pardoning someone for having a bag of weed or for not paying his full taxes is one thing. Pardoning someone for murder is really a bridge too far for a lot of people, even who embrace the pardon. And it's not as clear cut that he can just pardon. He can suggest a pardon, I think, and then it has to go to the parole board.
Gents, I love it. Thank you. We're a little over, so I've got to say goodbye, but love that you visit on Fridays. Thank you for always shedding light on stuff that we don't really know about, and love your takes. So we'll do it next week. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thanks,
Jim
Mark.
Avila, Michael Shure.
See you, Michael.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.